Are you super afraid of launching products that solve absolutely no problem? Or are you a solo founder that talks to himself in Slack? Well, with Gstack, you might have someone else to talk to, or like 10 more people. Simply put, Gstack is a set of Claude skills that follow supposedly the methodology of Garry Tan, who's the CEO of Combinator, Silicon Valley's most prominent startup incubator. You can use this skill to validate ideas, review code, and even review designs. How well it actually blueprints his methodology, we'll find out in a minute. Garry Tan has mentioned that his friend refers to Gstack as God mode, or as Mobitar puts it,
it's a folder of prompts. And I don't mean that like disparagingly. No. It's literally a bunch of markdown files that tell Claude to pretend to be different people.
Whichever one it is, I'm going to give you my live and honest impression of Gstack using it as a non-engineer. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use Claude to build an AI psychologist that is not sycophantic, so it doesn't agree with whatever the user says like GPT does, knows your past, and thirdly, acts like a real psychologist would, where they cut off sessions, challenge any contradictions, and hold you accountable. All right, let's dive into this. So you're gonna head over to Gstack on GitHub and you're gonna install it on your device. This already assumes that you have Claude Code installed on your device. I'm not gonna show the full setup just because it's pretty easy to install, but let's look at some of his descriptions here. So Garry Tan introduces himself and basically says he's worked with all of these startups, and this is what makes this so interesting and cool. If this really follows his methodology, then hopefully this is a super accessible way for solo founders or people who aren't part of YC to validate their ideas and improve their code. What I find funny is his emphasis on how many lines of code he produces. AI has produced for him, of course. I already set up Gstack on my machine, and I'm actually going to show you how I use it using Conductor, which is sort of an interface for your terminal and works great if you use Claude Code. So if you use Conductor, just head over here and we're going to go quick start, and we actually see that Gstack is listed as a template here. So we're going to select that and I'm going to call this AI. So we're creating a new repo. Cool. We've started a new repo and we can actually see that it prompts us to run the first skill, which is office hours. So office hours, from what I understand, I asked my two founders who went through Y Combinator, is a meeting with one of the startup consultants there, where you basically ask a bunch of difficult questions that challenge your thinking about your product. So can you tell me more about what the actual YC office hours look like?
Basically at points where we were unsure what to do with the company, we were stuck. Then you have office hours and they will basically ask you a bunch of questions that you have to answer yourself, and then you kind of realize what you should do, or you try to find new approaches to what you are doing, or you figure out what you should try to do to answer questions that you have.
What was the proportion of like, this is pure genius versus like trying to really break down some of your ideas or your assumptions?
I think it's more the second one where I don't think they try to break down your ideas like in a negative way, but they do ask a bunch of hard questions that you have to answer, and that could show that you don't really know everything about the idea. So I wouldn't say, like, I don't even think they will really give their opinion that much all of the time about the idea, because it can be hard to figure out if something is a really good idea or not. You just have to prove it yourself by having customers, by growing the product. So they will just ask you questions basically, and they aren't going to give their opinion that much about an idea, I think.
More like zooming in detail and then maybe challenging your assumptions or your methodology. I should add, if you already have a product in a repo, or you already have code or whatever existing on your product, then you might want to run Gstack on there directly so it can just access all of your files immediately. Let's run office hours. Okay, here we have our first question. What's your goal with this project? I'm gonna say side project vibe coding. All right, so it asks us what the coolest version of this product is. So I'm gonna grab my entire description for this project, which I've already written, and I'm gonna paste it here. And for that, they wanna know if I wanna use it personally or if I'd like to share it with people. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna share it with friends or a small group. Okay, now it's asking us more about what vision we have for the end product. I can definitely tell how this mimics maybe what office hours would be like, where it asks us like, what have you used before? And basically, why are you building this tool that's supposedly better than existing solutions? This part I think is so cool, where it suggests doing research on the category category of AI psychology apps. So we're gonna say search away. Cool, so it's revised its approach. The Stoic therapist intake asks about their biggest challenge today. Then we want some life history, and then ongoing is CBT, etc. Yes, this captures what I want. Let's write the design doc. So what it's doing here, it's creating a design doc, which is basically what engineers do before they build a product. They need to scope out the specs, how the product's gonna work, and what else might be required. Let's say you need API access to something, or you want to connect several tools. That's just going to be laid out here. We can see here it says it's a solid review. We found 14 issues, mostly around undefined file formats and context window management. Anyone who is building something of a skill, a Claude skill, or anything using an LLM knows that the biggest challenge is going to be how to manage context, just because the quality of your product, if it uses an LLM, is going to depend on how much context it has. However, having too much context in one session can make your tool really expensive. Okay, cool. So we've just gotten a personal note from Garry Tan, and then here we actually have a referral to Y Combinator. So you should use this link and say you were referred by Gstack, I bet. And lastly, we get some resources. It's sending us to Paul Graham's website, some YouTube videos, etc. I ain't reading all of that as I'm building. Garry Tan sprinkled some essays and references and shares his thinking about using AI to build stuff. And he has a real growth mindset around using AI to build new products. I think in some ways he's preaching to the choir, because anyone who's using Gstack is already bullish on using AI to build products. I'm gonna pause him here, and I'm gonna actually call the CEO review skill. From what I've heard, the CEO review skill mimics Brian Chesky's approach to product, so the CEO of Airbnb, where they want you to create a 11-star user experience and really set the bar very high there, rather than focusing on features. It wants you to focus on the end user experience. Maybe this is the place where it actually gets a bit critical, more critical about the quality of my product idea. While we wait, this is the methodology that Gstack follows. So we have think, which is the phase we're in. We have plan, so basically the design doc, build, review, test, ship, and reflect. I'm not gonna do much coding as part of this Claude skill that I'm building, basically. Yeah, I think a lot of these skills basically for non-engineers are going to be a little bit overkill. Okay, these are the results of our CEO review. It's challenging in step 1, our premises. In step 3, it gives us the current state, the plan, and then the 12-month ideal. I think this is so cool. Like goals to set for yourself. And then we have step 3 bis, which is basically, it gives us implementation options. Know what the best suggestion here is. We're gonna go with B, and then eventually we'll build a V2 of this product. If you were to build this from scratch, Claude would probably ask you to go through some rounds of evaluations of how well the LLM does, or how well your skill does basically at responding to your needs. So you'd basically have a version of your product that you could talk to, or the psychologist in this case, and then you can review the response every time, and then it updates the prompt to match your feedback. Anyways, it's cool that it gives you an hourly breakdown of how you're going to build this product. Okay, then we have the architecture review, so how the skill is going to work and how it's going to call certain prompts from files, etc. I think that as a non-engineer, this is a bit complicated to understand. I would love to know an engineer's perspective on this. Maybe it's too simplistic for them. Honestly, I'm just gonna say, yes, this works, because you probably know better. Again, I'm just gonna accept whatever it says. Fix all these gaps. I'm starting to really see the value of Gstack, again, as a non-engineer, because I would never have thought about all of these gaps, how these files need to work together, how we make sure that the skill calls on the right context to give the user the best experience. I think it's cool to have that. Then we have section 3, security and threat, sensitive data, accidental git commit, and prompt injection. I'm just gonna say whatever you need to do to fix those security concerns. This is where I'll be honest, I had the biggest wow moment around Gstack, is that it points out edge cases. And with a product like an AI therapist, there are actually some concerns around the well-being of the user, if they're suicidal or if they're having a bad day. Do we really want to cut off a 45-minute session during an emotional moment? A real therapist might still cut it off, but they might also understand that this is a crisis situation. Here we have the most time-consuming part of building this tool, which is prompt regression tests. So we're going to see how well the skill does at staying non-sycophantic, for example. And it can actually help us create some tests. Here we have a performance review, so we have the size of the markdown files and seeing how that fits within Claude's context window. No issues there apparently. As I'm going through Gstack with little experience actually building LLM-based tools, I am realizing that whatever seems as an easy to build tool actually has some challenges there, and it's going to help us tackle those challenges. I've tried this now for a personal project and then saying that I was going to open it up for friends in this case, and I'm already noticing that there's way more steps involved in making this like a publicly available tool. Considers way more things than if you were just to try this tool yourself, so that's something to keep in mind. Here we've already hit the code quality review. I just always go to recommend it. To be honest, Claude Code, whenever you build anything, will also tell you to do evals, and that's how I built the original version of this, and it did just fine without Gstack. The engineering review is now complete, and the next step is ship, so we're just gonna run that. The funny thing is, I think Gstack is probably best used by engineers, but engineers are also the type to be unimpressed by other people's skills. So you're either a very motivated non-engineer, or you're an engineer who's gonna maybe hate this. Can go to our new PR, and now I gonna set up this Claude skill. So I'm gonna go back to my terminal. I'm gonna open Claude. All right, Salvador has been installed. Claude Code in a new window. Salvador, are you there? Yes, the Stoic Therapist. By the way, if you'd like to try this, just let me know. I am very happy to share this with the world after a few iterations on this skill. So if you want to try this Stoic AI psychologist that doesn't just yes man you and that actually acts like a real therapist from someone who's been in therapy for years, let me know. I'm going to give you my honest take at the end of using Gstack twice now for the same type of tool that I'm building. Number one point of criticism that I have seen is that people overestimate how impressive their skills, their Claude skills are, because they're the results of several prompts. And I viscerally agree with this. I was very hesitant to use someone else's skill. But if I were to use someone else's skill, I'd rather it be Garry Tan, because I hope that some thought went into which methodology the skill uses. There was another piece of criticism, which was every engineer has a markdown file where they basically instruct Claude on how to execute certain processes. I don't believe every engineer has such a file. I'm sure that people have added to their Claude MD how Claude should work with them, but I have a hard time believing it's this structured. And maybe this structure is overkill. As you saw, I was getting a bit tired after a while, and it felt a little bit rigid. As is intended with Gstack, you can use the skill, like the design review skill or the QA skill. You can use it at any time of your process. In conclusion, if you're a non-engineer, marketer, salesperson, whatever it may be, and you've already shipped things with Claude Code, you're already kind of familiar with what it's like to merge a PR or build products that are user-facing, then I think you're going to want to give Gstack a go, because to me, it mostly taught me about all of the steps involved in getting a product from an idea to ship. I think that this is a really cool way to get insight into Garry Tan's methodology, and I'm really happy I tried it, and I definitely will be trying more in future projects. I've also gotten our product designer, Kent, to try and use one of the skills, and then our CTO and some of our software engineers as well. So I'm curious to get their reactions. But thanks for watching this video. I hope you like this honest, live, first impression of Gstack. I'm sorry if it was a bit hectic, but I'll see you here for the next video. Please don't forget to subscribe if you want more on all things video marketing, content marketing, and how I use AI while running growth at Tella.